Foundation videos.
Tips on drawing using a grid, Part 1, Special Agent Vanessa De Groot.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me. It's Vanessa from Kind Hearted Studio. I'm so excited to be having this opportunity to teach you online. It really is one of my passions, and so thank you for allowing me to do this with you. Today we are going to do a drawing of a giraffe, and we're going to look at gridding the image to help us plan out and sort where things go. So it's just a process and tip and technique to help you drawing better. So you're going to take a piece of paper, and we want to start off with a square. So you can do two things. You can take your corner and fold it down. I'm using a scrap piece of paper, so there's drawing on the back, but you can fold it down like so and make a square that way. So you can either fold it, so you're taking the top corner and just lining it up with the side. So you can do a line across here and cut it, or you can fold it back and rip it. So I would suggest just taking a piece of paper. I'm going to draw a line across. Okay, and I'm going to cut right along this line. All right, so here's my square, and what we want to do is we want to find the center. So you're going to lightly sketch down the center this way and across, and that's going to provide us with a grid to help us map out where things go. So you're just you can get a ruler and measure it, you can eyeball it, you can fold your paper in half and map it out that way, whatever you want to do. It just depends if you want to fold your paper or not. So there is my grid. And then what we also want to do is we want to look at the halfway point between these lines. So from here to here, there to there, there to there, and there to there. So you're going to map out where are those halfway points, and just making a little line where those are. Now what we're going to do is we don't want to draw in really precisely and really hard. So we want to map out roughly where everything goes first. Okay, so if we look at the top notch of this line and in the picture, so right here, right, that's kind of the top of his head. And then these, I don't know what you call those, but those are off to the side, right? So those are going to sit over here in this space, right? So we just want to look and see where everything sits. So the eye is down in this corner here. So I'm going to make, it's not quite towards the bottom. And so if I just make a light circle there, just to map that out. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little bit heavier so you guys can see it, but I'm just paying attention to where everything sits. So if this is the top of the head, right? And if we look at the bottom of his nose, where does that sit? Making a little mark there. So the bottom of his mouth is past this line and probably about halfway down, right? So there's the bottom of his mouth. And how far out does the bottom of his, or the side of his mouth come? right? It comes just past this halfway point, okay? Right, so, and we want to pay attention to how far this curves up. So the bottom of his mouth curves just about above here. So it's going to curve, right? And then diagonal out. So you'll see that you might have a few lines that aren't right. Don't worry about that. Just leave them be and build up as you can, okay? So the bottom eye is over right at this side. So that bottom eye is going to sit there. And then if I want to look, it's also kind of wonky, right? So if I look at my eye over here, I'm paying attention to this side, I might move this down slightly. Okay. So we just want to place the shape. Okay. I want to check in with you guys. Just on this edge and curves. And then we have like a V shape. Right? And this one almost comes to the halfway point of that line, right? So if I look here, oh, I think my eyes need to be a whole lot bigger. Right?
They've made it so it's impossible for the camera to right here.
So right here at the bottom of these ears, whatever you want to call them, there's that kind of mountain shape. So it kind of comes up in the center of his head and down. And I'm going to make that eye a little bit bigger and just connect his head here. Okay, so this, so you guys can see a little bit better. That is how big his eye is going to be in terms of height. Okay, and then over here, this eye will be almost that same height. So what I like to do is I like to take my fingers and kind of measure it out and move it over. So if this one is that big, then I can pull over and mark it. Okay, so with the nose, so what we're going to do is we're basically just going to make a circle. Okay, so you're going to go about halfway between this line and here. Okay, and then we're going to go a circle around because we should already have this mark. So this mark is from here to here, it's the halfway point. So then, if I make this circle, that's going to help me place the rest of my things. Okay, and if we look at our nostril, the one sits right on that line, and then the other one is off to the right. So if it sits right on this line, it's going to be kind of like an upside down teardrop, okay? So it's going to look like this. If this is my nose, and that's the top of his head, it's going to look like an upside down teardrop, and then this one's going to curve that way, okay? So I'm going to place this here, and this one should be pretty close to the edge of that circle where it meets the face. So it should be over on that side. Okay. And what we're going to do is come right around, leaving some space. Like so. Okay. And then we're going to do this line right here, connecting the eye to the mouth. So if we look at it, if it kind of comes almost straight down a little bit, it veers out a little bit to the left, and then we curve in, okay? So it's coming straight down and curving. So I'm going to come right to the bottom of the eye. I'm going to come down about halfway, and then curving in. So if we look here, the ear doesn't go all the way out to the edge. So if we look, it maybe ends somewhere in this space over here. So it comes, let's continue. So starting at the top of this part, it's going to curve like that. And then the ear is kind of like a leaf shape. Okay, so if I make this shape first, then I can build up on it. So I want to just figure out how big that ear is going to be, and then I'm going to curve. Okay, so there's the one ear. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw that line right here. Okay, so you're going to go halfway down this space, and you're going to curve, following the curve of the ear and coming up to this top. So following the curve. Okay, and then we can make the top of his eye a little bit more defined. So I'm gonna just define his head there, just with that line. Okay, now on the other side, if we look at this ear, it's getting really close to that edge. But we want to make sure that they're kind of the same size. So what I like to do, measure it out with my fingers, and then come over to the other side. And just so I have an idea of how big it should be and where it should sit. So if we look at the page, It's not quite right across, it's down just a little bit, right? Because his face is kind of tilted, so it's not going to be right straight across, it's going to be down a little bit. So I'm gonna come and make that kind of leaf shape or eye shape, and then I'm gonna build it up. So I'm gonna scoot down and come up. There's my ear. Okay, and then the same as we did on this side. I'm gonna find kind of that halfway mark between here and here, and curving to there. Okay, and then our neck, we're gonna draw that in. So his neck basically starts at the top of his eye, or you can go kind of that halfway space. Everybody's is going to be slightly different just based on their measurements, but it's going to come down on a diagonal. Okay, so you're gonna come down on a diagonal, and then right where his jaw and his mouth meet, you're gonna come down. So instead of going on a diagonal this way, you wanna kind of come down and curve a little bit to the right. Does that look funny? Okay. If we take a step back and we look at it, we can see what's not working and what is working. So I'm gonna take a step back and look at it. He's looking a little funny at the moment, but it's all part of the process. We're just mapping him out. He's gonna change a little bit as we add more detail. Okay, we're gonna map out his eyes. And I'm gonna do it in marker so that you guys can see it, okay? So, I don't know how you guys have your eyes, but we're gonna start at the top here and we're gonna curve up. Like so. Okay, and then this line is gonna curve out like his eyeball. Okay, so it's just one big circle. And then on this side, we want to come to a point. And then on the edge of his face here, it's going to have a curved line. Do is maybe just some spots on his neck. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is just down in this space. And so it's up to you guys. You can look at it and follow along, or you can just go and add your own. So the first one is going to be about half of his neck space. So I'm going to come up, on a bit of a diagonal. Right, we're just going to map them out a little bit. So I don't know if anybody has something like this kicking around. It's a pencil smudger. So this is really great for blending. If you don't have something like this, you can use a Q-tip, okay? Now, you can use a regular pencil to shade. If you have any shading pencils, these are really great because they help and make it a little bit easier to blend colors. So, I did something here. If you look here, right, this is just your everyday pencil, right? But inside the pencil kit, there's a 2B, a 5B, 8B, 6B. There's all kinds of different pencils, and they just give you different shades. So it makes shading the giraffe a lot easier because then you don't have to use the same pencil and shade in the same area over and over. But if you don't have access to it, don't worry about it, okay? Another thing, if your parents might have this kicking around, some sticky tack. That's also very helpful in erasing, okay? Right? So we'll continue and we'll do some shading.